Facing humans in battle, the nightmares became flesh. Commander Zethkar stared at the holographic display with 3 of his 4 eyes, the 4th eye scanning the bridge crew for signs of panic. The blue-skinned Velaxian had commanded the dreadnought Asterisk Eternal Glory through 17 successful campaigns across the Outer Rim, but today felt different. Today, the enemy wasn't some backward species with primitive weapons or outdated tactics. Today, they faced humans. The tactical display showed their formation clearly. 12 consortium ships arranged in perfect battle formation, bristling with plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of their respective species' military engineering. The Velaxians brought their renowned shield technology, the Krillians their devastating energy weapons, and the insected Zephyrite their swarm tactics perfected over millennia. "Sir, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the mining colonies," reported Lieutenant Vexra, her mandibles clicking nervously as she processed the incoming data. "The humans have already hit 3 systems. They're moving faster than our intelligence predicted." Zethkar's tail twitched, a sign of deep concentration among his people. The reports had been filtering in for weeks now. Humanity had emerged from their small corner of the galaxy like a plague, spreading system by system with ruthless efficiency. What troubled him most wasn't their speed or their numbers, but the stories. Every survivor spoke of the same thing. Humans fought like demons possessed, using tactics so brutal and unpredictable that even seasoned warriors broke ranks and fled. "What about their fleet composition?" he asked, though part of him already dreaded the answer. "That's the strange part, sir. Our scouts report only 7 vessels, smaller than ours, less advanced technology by at least 50 years. On paper, we should obliterate them." Vexra paused, her insectoid features betraying uncertainty. "But sir, there's something else, the ships. They're not running standard formations. They're scattered across a 3 light-minute span, moving in patterns our computers can't predict." The bridge fell silent except for the humming of the ship's systems. Every officer knew the tactical doctrine. Maintain formation, concentrate firepower, overwhelm the enemy with superior numbers and coordination. It had worked for the consortium for over 2 centuries, bringing dozens of species under their banner through military might and political manipulation. "Perhaps they're retreating," suggested Navigator Thorn, his crystalline form shimmering with hope. "Maybe they realize they're outmatched." Zethkar wished he could share that optimism, but years of experience had taught him to trust his instincts over wishful thinking. Something about this felt wrong. The humans had shown up in force at every other engagement, overwhelming their enemies through sheer aggression and numbers. Why would they send such a small fleet to face the consortium's finest? "Sir, incoming transmission from Admiral Keeks aboard the Asterisk Dominion," announced the communications officer. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Admiral Keeks, Supreme Commander of the Consortium's 3rd Fleet. The ancient warrior's scaled hide bore the scars of 100 battles, and his reputation for tactical brilliance was matched only by his ruthlessness in combat. "Commander Zethkar," the Admiral's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "I trust your ships are ready for battle. Intelligence suggests the humans are planning something desperate. They know they can't match us ship for ship, so expect unconventional tactics." "Understood, sir. My crew is prepared for anything they might attempt." Zethkar tried to project confidence, but the Admiral's next words sent ice through his veins. "I hope so, Commander, because if half the reports from the front lines are true, we're not fighting a conventional enemy. The humans don't just want to defeat us. They want to break us. They want us to fear them so completely that the mere mention of their name sends entire fleets running." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Zethkar looked around at his officers, seeing his own concerns reflected in their faces. They were all seasoned veterans, but the stories from the outer colonies had shaken even the most hardened warriors. The tailies spoke of human ships that refused to retreat even when outnumbered 10-1. Of boarding parties that fought with such savage intensity that they overwhelmed opponents twice their size and 3 times their strength. Of human commanders who would sacrifice their own vessels in suicide attacks just to take a single enemy ship with them. But perhaps most disturbing were the psychological warfare reports. Humans apparently recorded everything, broadcasting the screams and pleas of defeated enemies across open channels. They would leave survivors just damaged enough to spread stories of human brutality. They turned every battle into a lesson, every victory into a warning. "Movement on the sensors, sir," called out sensor operator Clicks, his 6 arms dancing across the control surfaces. The human fleet is adjusting course. There, sir, they're heading straight for us. No evasive maneuvers, no attempt at tactical positioning. They're coming right at us. Through the bridge's massive viewport, Zethkar could see distant points of light growing larger. 7 ships against 12, and the humans were charging directly into their formation. It defied every tactical manual ever written. It was suicide. Or was it? All ships battle stations, Zethkar commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet communication network. Maintain formation. We'll show these mammals what happens when they challenge the consortium's might. But as he watched those 7 points of light grow larger, Commander Zethkar couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to learn something terrible about their enemy. The humans weren't retreating, weren't trying to outmaneuver them, weren't showing any fear at all. They were coming straight at them like predators who had already decided their prey was dead. The nightmare was about to begin, and Zethkar had the sinking realization that his perfect formation and superior numbers might not matter at all. The humans had a reputation for turning every disadvantage into a weapon, every defeat into a lesson, every battle into a story that would haunt their enemies' dreams. As the range closed and weapon systems powered up across both fleets, one thought echoed through his mind. Maybe the stories weren't exaggerated at all. Maybe they were warnings that no one had been smart enough to heed. The human ships continued their relentless advance, and for the first time in his long career, Commander Zethkar wondered if he was about to become part of one of those stories that would terrify future generations of consortium warriors. The battle was about to begin, and somehow he already knew who the real predators were. Facing Humans in Battle Part 2. The first volley erupted across space like a violent aurora. Consortium plasma cannons discharged their deadly cargo in perfect synchronization, 12 streams of superheated energy racing toward the approaching human fleet. The mathematical precision was beautiful in its lethality, each shot calculated to arrive simultaneously and overwhelm any possible defense. Commander Zethkar watched the tactical display with satisfaction as the energy weapons closed the distance. No ship could survive a coordinated barrage from the consortium's finest vessels. The humans would learn the price of their arrogance in a brilliant flash of vaporized metal and plasma. But then something impossible happened. The human ships didn't try to dodge. They didn't raise shields or attempt evasive maneuvers. Instead, they accelerated directly into the incoming fire, their engines blazing with such intensity that they left trails of distorted space in their wake. As the plasma bolts reached them, the human vessels did something that violated every principle of space combat. They rammed through the energy beams. Impossible, breathed Navigator Thorn, his crystalline form flickering with disbelief. Their hulls should have melted, the plasma should have cut them apart. But the human ships emerged from the barrage scarred and burning, yet still intact. Their hulls glowed cherry red with absorbed heat, armor plating had been blown away in chunks, and several ships trailed atmosphere and debris. Any rational species would have retreated to make repairs. Instead, the humans kept coming, their damaged vessels somehow moving even faster than before. "How are they still functional?" demanded Lieutenant Vexra, her mandibles clicking rapidly in distress. "Our sensors show massive hull breaches, system failures across their entire fleet. They should be dead in space." Zethkar stared at the readings in horror. The human ships were indeed catastrophically damaged, but they continued their charge with mechanical precision. More disturbing was what the sensors revealed about their construction. The vessels weren't built like normal warships at all. They were designed to be damaged, to lose entire sections while keeping their core systems operational. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel," reported the communications officer, his voice trembling. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Zethkar ordered, though something in his gut warned him he wouldn't like what he heard. The main screen crackled to life, revealing a human face that would haunt the commander's nightmares for cycles to come. The creature was bipedal like many species, but there was something fundamentally wrong with its appearance. The skin was pale and scarred, the eyes were small and predatory, and when it smiled, Zethkar could see rows of bone-white teeth that belonged on a carnivore. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet," the human spoke, its voice carrying an unsettling calm that contrasted sharply with the chaos of battle. We've received your message. Thank you for gathering your ships in such a convenient formation. It will make this much easier. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. But before anyone could respond, the human ships did something that redefined Zethkar's understanding of tactical insanity. They split apart. Each vessel suddenly broke into multiple components, revealing that what they had thought were 7 ships were actually 7 ship clusters. Dozens of smaller craft emerged from within the larger hulls like parasites leaving a host, spreading out in all directions with suicidal speed. "They're everywhere," shouted sensor operator Clicks, his 6 arms struggling to track the suddenly multiplied contacts. 43, no, 47 separate vessels. They're moving faster than anything should be able to move. Sir, some of them are pulling 15 Gs. That should liquefy any crew inside. But Zethkar was beginning to understand something terrible about their enemy. The humans weren't fighting like other species because they weren't like other species. Every tactical doctrine in the galaxy was based on the assumption that crews needed to survive, that ships were valuable assets to be preserved, that victory meant achieving objectives while minimizing losses. The humans had apparently thrown all of those assumptions out of an airlock. The smaller human craft swarmed through the consortium formation like angry insects, their weapons firing continuously. But these weren't normal weapons either. Instead of trying to penetrate shields or armor, the human guns seemed designed to cause maximum psychological impact. Explosive rounds detonated against hulls in spectacular flashes, creating noise and vibration that carried through ship structures. Energy weapons swept across viewports, temporarily blinding crews. Some kind of sonic attack penetrated even the best soundproofing, creating a hellish wailing that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Damage report," Zethkar demanded, trying to make sense of the chaos erupting around his fleet. "Minimal structural damage to most vessels, sir," replied the tactical officer, confusion evident in his voice. "But, sir, we're receiving reports of crew panic across the fleet. The Krillian ship Ravager reports that half their gun crews have abandoned their posts. The Zephyrite vessel Asterisk Swarm Queen is requesting permission to retreat." Zethkar felt his blood chill. The humans weren't trying to destroy their ships immediately. They were terrorizing the crews first, breaking their will to fight before moving in for the kill. It was psychological warfare elevated to an art form. "Sir, incoming message from Captain Tivar of the Asterisk Swarm Queen," announced communications. The screen filled with the image of a Zephyrite captain, her insectoid features twisted with fear. "Commander Zethkar, these humans are not normal. My warriors have faced death 1,000 times without flinching, but this is something else. They're not just attacking our ships. They're attacking our minds. Permission to withdraw and regroup." "Denied," Zethkar replied, though he felt the same fear gnawing at his resolve. "We maintain formation and finish this." But even as he spoke, he watched the tactical display with growing dread. The human craft weren't just randomly attacking. They were working in perfect coordination, each small group targeting specific systems on specific ships. And they were learning. Every maneuver the consortium forces attempted, the humans adapted to instantly. Every defensive pattern was countered before it could take effect. Worse still, the humans were talking. Their communications channels were wide open, and they were broadcasting their conversations for everyone to hear. But they weren't speaking in the clinical, professional tones of trained military personnel. They were laughing, joking, sharing casual observations about the best ways to cripple each type of consortium vessel. "Beautiful shot on that plasma conduit, Rodriguez," came one voice. "Watch their port side weapons array flicker and die." "Thanks, Captain. These bug ships are pretty once you strip off their armor plating. Look at all those pretty lights." "Chen here, remember, we want survivors. Can't spread stories about human brutality if everyone's dead. Target life support and engines, leave the crew compartments mostly intact." The casual cruelty of it was staggering. These humans weren't fighting for their lives or defending their homes. They were hunting, and they were enjoying it. Suddenly, the Asterisk Eternal Glory shuddered as multiple impacts struck her hull. Through the viewport, Zethkar could see 3 human craft dancing around his ship like predators playing with their prey. Their weapons weren't trying to penetrate his armor yet. Instead, they were methodically stripping away external systems, communications arrays, and sensor clusters. "Sir, we're being systematically blinded," reported Lieutenant Vexra, her voice cracking with strain. "They're not trying to kill us. They're making sure we can't call for help." As if responding to her words, the human ships suddenly broke off their attack and moved to their next target. Within minutes, every ship in the consortium formation had suffered the same treatment. Weapons still functioned, life support remained intact, but their ability to communicate with the outside galaxy had been severed with surgical precision. Now, came Captain Chen's voice over the open channel, let's have a real conversation. The human ships reformed into attack formation, and Zethkar realized with absolute certainty that the real battle was just beginning. Everything up to this point had been preparation. The humans had been testing them, learning their capabilities, cutting off their escape routes. Now they were ready to show the consortium what true predators could accomplish. The nightmare was becoming flesh, and Commander Zethkar finally understood why every survivor from human attacks spoke of the same thing. Once you faced humans in battle, you were never the same again. Facing humans in battle, Part 3. The second phase of the human attack began with silence. For exactly 67 seconds, the human craft simply held position around the crippled consortium fleet, their weapons powered but not firing. The silence was more terrifying than any bombardment could have been. Every alien crew member found themselves straining their senses, waiting for the next assault, their minds creating horrors worse than reality. Then Captain Chen's voice filled the communication void, calm and conversational as if discussing the weather. Consortium forces, this is your final opportunity to surrender. We understand that some of you have families, cultures worth preserving. We're not unreasonable. Commander Zethkar felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the humans could be reasoned with after all. Perhaps this was all an elaborate show of force designed to secure their surrender without further bloodshed. That hope died with Chen's next words. However, our intelligence indicates that several of your species have been involved in the systematic extermination of primitive civilizations. The Krillians alone have destroyed 17 developing worlds in the past century. The Velaxians have enslaved entire populations for their mining operations. The Zephyrite have practiced selective breeding on conquered peoples. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees. Every officer present knew the charges were true, but they were the accepted practices of galactic expansion. Every spacefaring civilization had done such things. It was simply how the universe worked. So here's what's going to happen, Chen continued, her voice taking on an edge that cut through space like a blade. The ships that have committed genocide will be destroyed completely. No survivors. The ships that have only participated in slavery and exploitation will be crippled but left functional. You'll live to carry our message to your governments. Zethkar's mouth went dry. Lieutenant Vexra, pull up our fleet roster, cross-reference with known genocidal activities. The tactical display updated, showing the fleet composition in horrible clarity. 4 ships, including 2 Krillian dreadnoughts and the massive Zephyrite hive ship, were highlighted in red. 8 ships, including his own Eternal Glory were marked in yellow. The red ships have 90 seconds to evacuate their crews to the yellow ships, Chen announced. After that, anyone still aboard those vessels will be considered complicit in genocide and will be treated accordingly. Chaos erupted across the fleet communications. The crews of the condemned ships screamed demands for help, threats, pleas for mercy. Some began immediate evacuation procedures while others attempted to break formation and flee. The humans let them run. Every ship that tried to escape found itself surrounded by human craft that seemed to anticipate their every move. The small vessels didn't attack, didn't disable engines or weapons. They simply followed, broadcasting a continuous message. You have 73 seconds remaining, then 67, then 61. The countdown was psychological torture, perfected to an art form. Admiral Keeks's face appeared on Zethkar's screen, the old warrior's features twisted with rage and desperation. Commander, this is insanity. We cannot abandon our vessels to these barbarians. I order you to maintain formation and prepare for coordinated assault. But before Zethkar could respond, Captain Chen's voice cut through the channel. Admiral Keeks of the Dominion, our records show that you personally ordered the sterilization of the Vorthan homeworld. 37 billion sentient beings, men, women, children, elderly, sick, healthy, all dead because they refused to surrender their mineral rights. The screen showed Chen's face again, and this time there was no pretense of civility. Her eyes were cold and empty, the gaze of a predator that had already decided its prey was dead. You don't get to evacuate, Admiral. You don't get to surrender. You don't get to send messages or make peace or beg for mercy. You get to experience exactly what you gave to 37 billion innocent people. The transmission ended, and immediately the human craft surrounding the Asterisk Dominion opened fire. But this wasn't the surgical precision they had shown earlier. This was pure, concentrated violence designed to maximize suffering. Energy weapons carved through armor plating layer by layer, slowly peeling the ship apart like fruit. Kinetic rounds punched precisely targeted holes that would cause maximum decompression without immediately killing the crew. The Dominion died slowly, and the humans made sure every ship in the fleet heard every scream, every plea, every moment of terror broadcast across open channels. 45 seconds remaining for voluntary evacuation, Chen announced calmly, as if the systematic torture of Admiral Keeks's crew was merely background noise. Zethkar watched his tactical display in horror as the evacuation became a stampede. Escape pods launched from the condemned vessels like seeds from a dying plant, racing toward any ship that would take them. His own ship received over 300 refugees in less than 30 seconds, far exceeding safe capacity. 30 seconds. The remaining condemned ships were virtually empty now, skeleton crews and a few die-hard loyalists who refused to abandon their vessels. The humans had orchestrated a perfect psychological breakdown, turning the consortium's own survival instincts against their military discipline. 15 seconds. Lieutenant Vexra looked up from her station, her mandibles trembling. "Sir, we've received all the refugees we can safely accommodate. The other yellow ships report similar status. But, sir, there are still crews aboard the red ships. They're requesting permission to transfer to our vessels." Zethkar closed his eyes. He knew what Chen would say before the words came. "Time's up." The human assault on the remaining red ships was swift and merciless. Unlike the prolonged agony they had inflicted on Admiral Keeks, these vessels simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, the next they were expanding clouds of superheated gas and twisted metal. The humans had apparently decided that the remaining crews had made their choice. The silence that followed was deafening. "Now," Chen's voice resumed, as casual as if she hadn't just murdered hundreds of sentient beings, "let's discuss the terms of your surrender." Zethkar found his voice with difficulty. "What terms? You've already demonstrated that you're willing to commit mass murder. What's to stop you from killing us all?" "Because you're more valuable alive, Commander. You see, we humans have learned something important about galactic politics. Fear is the most efficient form of communication. Every one of you who survives today will spend the rest of your lives telling others about what you witnessed. You'll describe how humans fight, how we think, how we treat our enemies." The tactical display showed the remaining consortium ships surrounded, but not yet destroyed. The humans had achieved perfect control over the battlefield without losing a single vessel. "Your species will have nightmares about us," Chen continued. "Your military academies will study today's battle and conclude that humans are something new in the galaxy, something that doesn't follow the old rules about proportional response and civilized warfare." Zethkar realized with dawning horror that everything that had happened was planned. The humans hadn't stumbled into psychological warfare by accident. They had weaponized fear itself, turning every battle into a lesson that would spread across the galaxy like a virus. "You want us to be afraid," he said. "No, Commander, we want you to be terrified. We want your people so scared of fighting humans that they never try it. We want the mere possibility of facing us in battle to end wars before they start. We want peace through superior firepower and the absolute certainty that challenging humanity is suicide." The human ships began to withdraw, leaving the surviving consortium vessels alone among the debris of their comrades. But before they departed completely, Chen had one final message. "Tell your leaders that humanity is claiming the Outer Rim territories. Any species that wants to dispute our claim is welcome to try. We'll be waiting." As the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Commander Zethkar looked around his bridge at the shocked faces of his crew and the terrified refugees they had rescued. He knew that Chen was right about one thing: none of them would ever be the same again. The humans had turned warfare into theater, and every survivor was now an actor in their play. A play designed to convince the galaxy that humanity was something to be feared above all else. The nightmare had become flesh, and now it would spread across the stars, carried by the very people who had lived through it. Facing Humans in Battle, Part 4. 3 days after the battle, Commander Zethkar stood before the emergency session of the Consortium Council, his uniform bearing the scorch marks of combat and his eyes carrying the weight of impossible memories. The great amphitheater on Nexus Prime normally echoed with the dignified debates of dozens of species, but today it felt more like a funeral parlor. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to hear first-hand accounts of humanity's tactical capabilities. What they received instead was something that challenged their fundamental understanding of how civilized beings conducted warfare. The humans did not fight like any species we have encountered, Zethkar began, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. They fought like something that had evolved beyond our concepts of survival and self-preservation. Chancellor Vorth, the ancient Kelani diplomat who had overseen galactic peace for over 2 centuries, leaned forward with obvious skepticism. Commander, your reports suggest that humans willingly sacrifice their own ships and crews for purely psychological effect. Such tactics are evolutionarily impossible. No species survives by throwing away its own members. That's what I thought too, Chancellor, but I watched them do it. More than that, I watched them enjoy it. Zethkar activated the holographic display, showing the tactical breakdown of the engagement. They didn't see their damaged ships as losses, they saw them as weapons. Every hull breach, every systems failure, every dead crew member was simply another tool in their arsenal. The chamber fell silent as the hologram played out the destruction of Admiral Keeks's fleet. Even experienced military officers shifted uncomfortably as they watched the systematic dismantling of the Dominion Asterisk, the careful calibration of suffering, the broadcast terror. "This is propaganda," declared General Thexwin of the Draconic Hegemony, his scaled features twisted with disgust. "No species fights with such casual brutality. Your sensors must have been compromised. Human psychological warfare has clearly affected your judgment." But before Zethkar could respond, a new voice cut through the chamber. "The commander's account is accurate." Every head turned toward the source. Captain Tivar of the Asterisk Swarm Queen, the only other senior officer to survive the engagement. The Zephyrite's insectoid features were marked with stress patterns that indicated severe psychological trauma, something virtually unknown among her warrior species. "I have commanded hive fleets for 40 years, Tivar continued, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "I have seen every form of warfare practiced in this galaxy. What the humans did was beyond warfare. It was artistry. They turned battle itself into a weapon." She activated her own hologram, showing detailed sensor logs from her perspective. "Watch their attack patterns. Notice how they never target life support systems immediately. They disable weapons first, then communications, then propulsion. They want their enemies alive and aware as long as possible. They want them to experience every moment of their defeat." The hologram shifted to show the human ship's coordination patterns. "But look at this. Their tactical coordination is perfect, but it's not based on any known military doctrine. They move like a pack of predators that have evolved to hunt together. Every maneuver serves multiple purposes: tactical advantage, psychological impact, and strategic messaging." Chancellor Vorth studied the data with growing unease. "You're suggesting that humans have evolved specifically for warfare?" "No," Tivar replied. "I'm saying they've evolved something far worse. They've developed the ability to enjoy the suffering of their enemies. Every transmission we intercepted showed humans who were genuinely having fun while they dismantled our fleet." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The concept was almost incomprehensible to most galactic species. War was a necessary evil, a tool for achieving political or economic goals. The idea of finding joy in combat itself was considered a sign of mental illness among civilized peoples. "Perhaps," suggested Ambassador Krylth of the Trade Federation, "we are dealing with a species in the early stages of their development. Young civilizations often exhibit excessive aggression before they mature into rational actors." Zethkar shook his head grimly. "Their technology suggests otherwise. Their ships were older than ours, true, but their tactical computer systems were running calculations our best AIs couldn't match. They weren't primitive barbarians striking out randomly. They were master strategists who had planned every aspect of their attack down to the psychological effect on individual crew members." He pulled up another section of the battle recordings. Listen to their communications during combat. They weren't just coordinating tactics. They were teaching each other, sharing techniques for maximum psychological impact, discussing which species respond to which types of fear. The recorded voices of human pilots filled the chamber, casual and conversational, as they described the best methods for breaking the will of different alien species. The clinical nature of their discussions was more disturbing than any battle cry or expression of rage. "The Valaxians panic when you target their navigation systems first," came one voice. "Something about their cultural fear of being lost in space. Zephyrites are hive-minded, so isolate individual ships to break their coordination," suggested another. "Once they lose contact with the group, they become disoriented." "Remember, the goal isn't just to win," Captain Chen's voice concluded. "The goal is to make them never want to fight us again." The chamber had fallen completely silent. Even the most hardened military commanders looked shaken by what they had heard. This wasn't warfare as they understood it. This was something entirely new and terrifying. "There's something else," Tivar added quietly. "Our intelligence networks have been tracking human expansion for the past 6 months. They're not just conquering territory, they're converting it. Every species they defeat either joins them willingly or simply disappears." Chancellor Vorth's ancient features paled. "Disappears how?" "We don't know. Our spy networks in human-controlled space have gone dark. The last reports suggested that conquered species are being offered a choice: complete integration into human society or relocation to designated preservation worlds. Those who choose neither option are never seen again." The implications were staggering. The humans weren't just winning battles. They were systematically remaking entire sectors of the galaxy according to their own design. And they were doing it so efficiently that the consortium's intelligence apparatus couldn't even track their methods. "How many species have they contacted so far?" asked General Thexwin, though his aggressive posture had diminished considerably. 47 confirmed," Zethkar replied. 17 have joined them voluntarily after witnessing human combat capabilities. 22 have been relocated to preservation worlds. 8 have chosen to resist." "And the 8 who resisted?" "Gone, not destroyed, not defeated. Gone, as if they never existed. Their homeworlds are still inhabited, but by humans now. Their technology, their culture, their very genetic patterns have been completely replaced." The chamber fell into stunned silence as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just conquering. They were replacing entire civilizations so thoroughly that no trace remained. "They're not expanding," Chancellor Vorth said slowly, his voice heavy with realization. "They're converting the galaxy into something else entirely, something human." Captain Chen's final transmission to the defeated consortium fleet played one more time. "Tell your leaders that humanity is claiming the Outer Rim territories. Any species that wants to dispute our claim is welcome to try. We'll be waiting." As the recording ended, every being in the chamber understood that they faced a choice that would define the future of galactic civilization. They could submit to humanity's expansion and hope for mercy. They could flee to the far edges of known space, or they could fight and risk the complete erasure of their species' existence. The nightmare had not only become flesh, it was spreading across the stars like a plague, converting everything it touched into a reflection of its own terrifying nature. The question now was whether anyone in the galaxy was strong enough to stop it. Facing Humans in Battle, Part 5. 6 months after the consortium's defeat, former Commander Zethkar stood on the observation deck of the research station Sanctuary Asterisk, watching as the last evacuation ships departed for the galactic rim. The station hung in empty space, far beyond the reach of any known civilization, a final refuge for species who had chosen exile over submission. The transformation of the galaxy had proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Humanity's expansion hadn't slowed or paused for negotiation. Every month brought new reports of civilizations that had simply vanished overnight, their worlds repopulated by humans who seemed to emerge from nowhere in impossible numbers. "Still thinking about what we could have done differently?" asked Dr. Myra Solis, the human xenoanthropologist who had joined their exodus 3 months ago. She was the first human most of the refugees had met outside of combat, and her presence on the station had caused considerable debate. Zethkar turned to study her carefully. Unlike the terrifying figures from the battlefield recordings, Dr. Solace appeared completely ordinary. She was smaller than most of the alien refugees, possessed no visible weapons or cybernetic enhancements, and spoke with a soft accent that suggested education and culture. "I keep wondering if you're all like them," he admitted. "Captain Chen and her crew, are all humans natural predators, or are we seeing something new?" Solace smiled sadly, an expression that had taken Zethkar weeks to interpret correctly. "That's the question that got me exiled from human space. I was part of the research team studying our expansion protocols. When I started asking uncomfortable questions about our methods, I was given a choice: stop asking or leave." She moved to stand beside him at the viewport, both of them watching the endless stars. "What you faced wasn't representative of all humanity, but it wasn't aberrant either. It was the logical conclusion of a process that began centuries ago." "What do you mean?" "Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, climate change, resource scarcity. We survived by becoming the most adaptable killers our planet had ever produced. When we reached space and encountered other species, we discovered something wonderful and terrible." Zethkar waited, though part of him dreaded what she might say. "We discovered that we were better at violence than anyone else in the galaxy, not just physically, but mentally. Other species fight for territory or resources or survival. Humans fight because we're good at it, because we enjoy the challenge of defeating something that should be able to defeat us." The observation deck fell silent except for the humming of the station's life support systems. Around them, refugees from a dozen species worked to build new lives far from their ancestral homes, all because they had refused to bow to humanity's expansion. "Captain Chen and her crew weren't sociopaths," Solace continued. "They were artists, humans who had found their calling in the systematic defeat of other species, and they were so successful that humanity decided to organize our entire civilization around that capability." Zethkar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature controls. "You're saying that what we witnessed was humanity's natural state?" "I'm saying that humans spent thousands of years learning to suppress our violent instincts in the name of civilization. But when we reached the stars and found ourselves surrounded by potential enemies, we decided that suppression was inefficient. So we built a society that celebrates our capacity for violence instead of containing it." She activated a personal hologram showing star maps of human expansion. "Look at the patterns. We don't conquer randomly or for strategic resources. We target species based on their potential threat level and their usefulness for our long-term goals. Every conquest serves multiple purposes: territorial expansion, technological acquisition, and demonstration of our capabilities to other potential enemies." The maps showed the methodical nature of human expansion with frightening clarity. Each conquered system was perfectly positioned to support further expansion while cutting off potential alliance routes between non-human species. "They're isolating everyone," Zethkar realized, "making it impossible for the remaining species to coordinate resistance." "Exactly, and they're doing it while maintaining the illusion that surrender is always an option. Some species are genuinely incorporated into human society. Others are relocated to reservation worlds where they can maintain their cultures in isolation. But the underlying message is always the same: resist and be erased." Dr. Solace pulled up another hologram showing population statistics from human-controlled space. "The most disturbing part is how efficient the process has become. Entire civilizations are being processed in weeks instead of months. Humans have turned conquest into an industrial operation." "But you left," Zethkar pointed out. "You chose exile over participating in this expansion. That suggests not all humans support what's happening." "True, there are millions of humans who oppose the expansion protocols. But we're a minority, and we're not the ones in control. The humans who enjoy conquest have convinced the majority that expansion is necessary for species survival. They've weaponized our fear of being vulnerable." The conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the station's communication system. "All residents to emergency stations. Unknown vessels approaching from human space." Through the viewport, Zethkar could see distant points of light growing larger. 7 ships in perfect formation, approaching with the same relentless confidence he remembered from his last battle. The nightmare had found them even here, at the edge of known space. "How did they locate us?" he demanded, but Dr. Solace was already moving toward the communication panel. "This is Dr. Myra Solace aboard the refugee station Sanctuary Asterisk," she broadcast on human military frequencies. "I am requesting safe passage for non-combatant civilians under the Terran Accords." The response came immediately, and Zethkar recognized the voice with a shock of terror. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Fleet. Dr. Solace, your presence on this station constitutes a violation of your exile agreement. Return to your assigned transport for immediate departure." "And the refugees will be given the same choice offered to all non-human populations: integration, relocation, or resistance. I'm sure they'll make the rational decision." The human ships had closed to weapons range, but they weren't attacking. Instead, they simply waited, their presence an implicit threat that made negotiation impossible. Dr. Solace turned to face the gathered refugees, her expression heavy with resignation. "I'm sorry. I thought distance would protect you, but humans don't accept the concept of neutral space. You're either with us or you're a potential future threat." Commander Tivar, who had helped design the refugee station, activated the general address system. "All species representatives to the Central Assembly. We have a decision to make." As the various aliens gathered, Zethkar realized that the choice they faced was the same one that had confronted every species since humanity's expansion began. Submit and lose their independence, flee even further and eventually be found again, or fight and face complete erasure. "There is one other option," Dr. Solace said quietly. "Join me in my research. Help document what humanity has become before it spreads beyond this galaxy. Create a record that might warn other civilizations in other galaxies about what's coming." The human ships continued to wait, patient as death, while the refugees debated their impossible choice. Captain Chen's voice cut through their discussions one final time. "You have 24 hours to decide. Choose wisely. The galaxy is becoming something new, and you can either be part of that transformation or stand aside while it happens around you. But you cannot stop it." As the transmission ended, Zethkar looked around at the faces of beings who had already lost everything once before. The nightmare hadn't just become flesh, it had become unstoppable. Humanity had turned themselves into something beyond traditional concepts of civilization, and they were reshaping the galaxy to match their own terrifying nature. The only question now was whether anyone would survive to tell the story of what the galaxy had lost, or if humanity's transformation would be so complete that future generations would never even know that other ways of existence had ever been possible. The stars watched in silence as the last free beings in the galaxy faced their final choice, and the nightmare continued its relentless spread across the infinite darkness of space.